you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Tried to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music. Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man, Andy Gillard here. Hope everybody's keeping well out there.
Hello, everyone. Stu back again, like a Renegade Master. I don't know where that came from. That wasn't planned. Hello, everyone.
You know, I think this is our 199th episode. Yeah, 199. We've done a few more because we have done like the odd uncaged and spin-off ones and what have you. But this is our 199th episode, so 200 is the next big one. It's kind of incredible that we've got this far. I still feel like I can do podcasts, but also I feel like an old man, so it's weird.
You look like an old man as well.
Yeah, that is true.
I mean, how many have I not been on? 2, maybe 3?
Something like that. It's not been many.
There was the one where I got mocked for going to my cousin's wedding.
Yes, that was when we got to speak to guy from Pig, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Whose name escapes me. I'll say Michael, but for the life of me. Yeah, there was that one. I know Matt did the one where he spoke to Kelly from the Lighthouse Cinema.
Yeah.
Have you missed any others? I mean, because obviously I know you go to Whitby and whatnot, but we tend to like record around that, don't we?
Yeah.
So potentially I may have missed more than you, thinking about it. But
yeah, well, when you've been on Broadway more than I've been away, so.
David Nell was the guy from Pig.
Yeah.
David Nell. Yeah, that was an excellent episode. That was. Oh, I suppose there was the one with Emoir when I got to speak to him, the musical director from Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah,
what an excellent film that was.
So yeah, what is have you got anything back for the Kaylee thing? Talking about Pig again and Willy's Wonderland.
No, it's literally just that they're doing a live showing at the minute. So need to wait and see if there's any if anything comes to the pipeline for review or interview or anything. But I know that if somehow we managed to interview Kaylee Cowan, and then it would just be questions about Willy's Wonderland. I wouldn't ask anything about the new film. It would all be about that film. So I'm not sure how much joy they would get out of that.
When there's been to be new people who've joined us since we talked about Willy's Wonderland, it's been a while now. It's basically what Five Nights at Freddy's should have been, and go and watch that instead.
Yeah, I mean that's very true. I don't know if that coloured my opinion of Freddy's, But Freddy's was such a bad film, and when you compare it to that, like it was night and day almost, wasn't it? Such a good fun film, Willy's Wonderland was.
Yeah, it's
Definitely more.
exactly. I was just gonna say that he's done that film and he hasn't done anything as mental since. It's like something's brewing.
Yeah, like he had a period of like, was it 2019? No, Willy's Wonderland would have been 2021, wouldn't it? When we, I think it would have been. So it was just coming out of the pandemic, based the lockdowns, I think. And then we'd had like a period of stuff like that and Prisoners of the Ghostland. And then he's gone super serious doing Pig and like these ones that should be Oscar nominated.
Joe, the better one.
Oh yeah. I can't remember the name of the kid who was in that, but he was really good. Like, that was just an all-round really good film, wasn't it? Yeah. Because the one who directed that was the one who's done some of the episodes of The Righteous Gemstones. She's a fantastic watch as well. So that's something you'd probably enjoy, that one.
Yeah, it is. It's on my it's on the never-ending watch list, but it's one of them things that I didn't even. I heard what it was about, heard who was in it, and that was it. And it was added straight away without any context whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, if I see Goodman's name on the list of a TV show or film, chances are I'll give it a go because he's in it. But yeah, everyone in that it's a really strong cast. It's funny, but not like silly funny. Because obviously, when it comes to people like John Goodman and Adam Devine, they do have the history of doing more, not slapstick comedy, but more like a comedy, Roseanne, and that kind, Pitch Perfect, that kind of comedy. It's not that. It's got a bit of a dark, dramatic edge to it as well, which is brilliant. I think Matt would really enjoy it as well when you get certain time away from the little one to watch something. Anyway, we're here this week to discuss the issues at the box office. So the box office is at its lowest ebb since 2005. It generated $8.9 billion in 2023, down by almost a third from 2018. The box office between 2009 and 19 didn't drop below $10 billion. So with 2023's lower level, and we've had a really slow start this year as well. Like, we still haven't had a $1 billion film, at time of recording. So questions have started to be asked about the longevity of cinema's place in the world. Obviously, when we go to the cinema, have you noticed any changes, being there? Do you feel like it's quieter in the cinema than normal?
I mean, I've been even less than normal, even for me. And I looked at it and the fact that I'm kind of banished now until a new card comes because I lost my wallet in my house and I still don't know where it is.
Oh dear.
So this is another thing. Already, how long is this? 5 minutes in. So I don't know what happened. I went to watch the FA Cup final with my dad down the golf club. Didn't take it there because I thought, well, okay, I'll just get an Uber over there. Took 8 minutes from my house to Oxley. How is that even possible? But 8 minutes, £8. Nice job. Paid through PayPal, then took out my phone and my earbuds because thinking I'd have to walk back from his house. So I didn't take it out with me. The next morning, on the Sunday, I went to get it, where it normally on top of the Love Art jar. Not there. Gone. Just vanished. Completely gone. So it had my bank card in, Cineworld card, a Nectar card, and some other co-op thing. Thankfully not my season ticket because Jeff would have fucked himself for about £50 for a replacement one of them. But so I thought, but this is just wonderful, isn't it? So I thought, well, I know it's got to be in the house somewhere. It's probably fell in the cat food or it's down the back of the cupboard or something like that. Nowhere, absolutely nowhere to be seen. And I thought, okay, fine. So I'll cancel put the thing on pause and order a new bank card. Went on the old Temu, ordered something. I thought, well, it might work, it might not, because it's obviously been paused. It still let me do it. Of course it is. Yeah. So I went to get on the bus to get to work. So I was going to get a day saver. And it wouldn't work. it had just stopped working that day. So it was like 10 minutes before I was supposed to start, and I'm half a walk away, and I just looked at the driver and he went, "You have to pay." And okay, so I was going to step back off in shame.
Yeah.
I just text my boss and said, "I'll tell you when I get there, but I couldn't afford to get on the bus." So, but by the time I got home that day, new card was here. Brilliant. First thing I did when I realised on the Sunday, I thought, well, I've got to order a new Cineworld card anyway because mine had started fraying on the transparent stuff.
Okay.
And it was, they wanted a £5 for a new card if you'd lost it. If you wanted to edit details, it was a £10. I thought, well, now I'm just going to have the same picture as 2016 then. Why should I pay? Because my hairs fell out. That's not my fault. So, so that was nearly a week ago. No, and it's still not here. Not here.
That's poor form.
Yeah. So I can't go anywhere with it. That was only the fifth time I've been to the cinema all year so far to go and watch Furiosa. And bearing in mind it was a Friday night, I think he came out on a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Friday night, 7:00. I thought, oh well, I want to get it ticked off because even though it's a prequel and it doesn't really matter, and I just want to see this one properly because how much we love Fury Road. So I went up and there was literally 10 people in there
For a Friday night?
for the opening Friday night at 7:00 in super screen as well. Friday night, 10 people.
I mean, there's probably more in my screening, which was a midday one, and it wasn't in the super screen. It was still in one of the bigger screens, but it wasn't the biggest screen they've got. So that's really poor, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've had it already this year when I've been and I went on a Friday, even before Christmas when I went to see something, and I said at the time I haven't been on a Friday night to the cinema for years, and it was rammed. There was people everywhere. And 4 months later, it's completely gone. It's dead.
Incredible. Because I think the last time I did a Friday night would have been Oppenheimer, which obviously was...
It was that.
It was Barbenheimer that day because obviously you had... I think we'd both gone to see it in the day and then Oppenheimer on the evening. Yeah. So that was an event, but it doesn't seem like it's held up whatsoever, does it?
No. And that's the thing, the prices haven't gone up.
Yeah, I have got a little bit about the prices and other things included in the cinema, but I do wonder how much of an impact that has, if I'm honest. The first thing I've got written down is about streaming. So what was once the preservation of film and TV history, it's sort of become the present and future of new stuff. So when Netflix and Love Film began, it was a way of watching a massive library of TV and film, which wouldn't necessarily have been legally available to most people. It was radical. It was exciting. It was probably the beginning of the end, unfortunately. 31st of December 2014 saw the release of the first Netflix original. It was a documentary called My Own Man. This was about what it's like to be a man in today's society. It was exec produced by Ed Norton. The first Netflix original that was not a documentary was released 7 months later, October 15. Beasts of No Nation, the African war film with Idris Elba. Mm-hmm. Did you ever see that one? Yeah. Was it any good? I never got around to it.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying about John Goodman. It had Idris Elba in, so obviously I'm going to watch it. I liked it. You might do. I'd still give it a go. I mean, it was made on the cheaper side. Obviously at the time, I don't know if you'll be able to tell now, but it looked like a HBO film, not a film. If that makes any sense.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So it's a better quality than what you get on an ITV drama, but not a blockbuster. But again, it was the first, so...
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? Since then, we've had hundreds, if not thousands, of films, concerts, interview shows, an array of TV series in virtually every language across the entire globe. So here we are. Stu, you're given a choice of literally thousands upon thousands of films to watch from the comfort of your own home, or for the price of less than one ticket that you can see in the movie theatre, without then adding all the transport costs, let alone the food and drink on top of it. So, would you do that? Like purely from a fiscal point of view, you can go and see a film for £10-ish around here. I've got the average there. The average is just under £8. Netflix, until recently, was around that mark, probably a couple of quid more. So I think you can see why people were changing their habits somewhat of, well, I know I like this film, I can stay in and watch it. Or it could be, I've not seen this film, but I've heard good about it, so I can watch it here. Can you see why people, like originally way back when, started to change their habits around viewing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the fact that even you look at how old YouTube is, it's not that old at all, really. So it's just the fact that streaming video is still a relatively like a bit. It's been gone from a niche in our lifetime to normal within 10 years, 14, 15 years, something like that. And I was trying to think of it, what the first one was, and I remember watching a live video on the IGN website of E3 with a 1 year in a little quick time player that's probably no bigger than that the little window of me on this. Squinting like the that gif of the Asian guy with the thing. Doing proper doing that just to see anything like 320p or whatever it was. But you go from that and now you got 4K Dolby Atmos at home. You can see the way that it started to go, and here's the fact that Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix and they turned it down. One of the worst things ever.
They could have killed it dead in the water and Blockbuster would still be going now, and it would probably be streaming. But yeah, that's got to go down as one of the worst business decisions ever made, surely.
Yeah. I mean, I never had a Blockbuster card. I had a Choices one because that's what we had in Wensfield. It was Choices. And it's only like that because, I mean, you think of what it was back then. Either a Friday or a Saturday night, you'd go to Blockbuster or Choices or whatever. You'd get your video for, what would it have been? 7-8 quid, I suppose. Slightly cheaper than going to the cinema, and you could get your stuff there and watch a film at home. You'd make a day of it and you'd go out and you'd get it and you'd come back and you'd watch it. Depending on what it was, you might watch it again on the Saturday and then take you back on the Monday morning. It just replaced that. It was just different and you had more choice rather than just one film. So you can see a convenience. I mean, even from a quality point of view, no one really cares, do they? Now, I'd be interested to see how many people have actually got the premium audio-visual super experience tier compared to just the normal bog standard HD version. I don't know. I had a look earlier. I couldn't find it. That information is not available to us.
No, it's quite secretive. Netflix, like they don't tell you a lot of information unless they want you to know that information, which is weird for a company that's floated on the stock market. It tends to be quite open about these things, but they do their best at hiding some details. Because I don't have the top. I've got the 720 version, and I can barely tell any difference between that and the 1080, purely because it's the compression stuff that they use is so good now that the standards with it are negligible at best, to be perfectly honest.
Sickening ways.
But because I get it through my phone, I can either pay a bit extra and get the 1080 or just leave it as is, and I don't watch it enough to make any difference, to be honest.
Well, that's, for now, I mean, the upscaling on the tellies, depending on, or if you're watching it through a PS5, the upscaling through there and through the telly is superb. There's barely anything.
Yeah. I've got a Sony Bravia 4K or 8K, whatever it is, and it's it's all singing, all dancing. It does what it needs to do to make anything at least watchable.
Yeah. The only difference, it's not Netflix, it's through Disney Plus, when they tried this new tactic as well, where it was 80 quid for the year for normal, or I think it was 110 for 4K. And I thought, well, do I really need it in 4K? I thought, well, I'll try it. I'll just get a 3-month pass from the Game Evo. Everyone should try it on there. Really cheap passes. All legit as well. And you can't switch your plan. You buy it and then you stay there until it ends.
Okay.
Because that's what I thought, well, if I don't like it, then I'll just upgrade it. It's fine. There's no way to do that. You have to wait for the end of 3 months to do it. 3 months will be over and I will be going back up to 4K because I can't take it. It looks too bad. Even with all the gubbins and everything, maybe because I knew what it was like before. It's a HDR more than anything else, more than the actual 4K 1080p edition. It's the HDR and the black levels and all the wanky stuff that no one really cares about, other than me.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And in a way, I kind of like the fact that they do this because they give people options. And if you want to be a loser and you want the best experience, you pay more. If you want to be like a normal person and just get it without adverts, then this is here for you. I think I like it the way it is now. I don't like being the way I am, that I have to have these things. But giving people choice is a good thing, and it just adds more fuel to the fire of why people can't be asked to leave the house.
Yeah. Like, I sort of agree with you. The only thing I don't like about the tier system is they've got the ad-supported tier. I think if you're paying for it, there should be no ads, even on the bottom tier. I think that's a real squeeze, because why am I paying for something and then you're advertising to get even more? Like, I think that's a fucking insult. I really do.
But then some people don't care, though. This is the problem. Some people don't care about adverts. Especially older people who've grown up with it. So,
well, that's true.
I mean, I thought, well, how's this going to go this year with Love Island starting? If I get hooked on it, I know ITV are going to get my fiver again for ITVX for a month, because there's no way I'm going to be sitting there every day for 15 minutes. That's all it takes. But with the unskippable adverts in my Love Island, I have in this. It hasn't got me yet, though, so I've still got a week's trial on it, but we'll see. But that's what I did last year. When during Big Brother time, I can't be having it. But for most people, they don't care.
So do you just wait for the episode to finish and then watch it again, but without the adverts?
I very rarely watch anything live anyway.
Oh, okay.
Other than like the first one and the last one, or Eviction or whatever, depending on what show you're watching. It's always been like that. I've never watched it live. Even when I used to record stuff on Virgin, when I had that, I'd wait at least 20 minutes so I could fast forward through the adverts. So then by the end when it had finished, it would be the end of the show anyway for everyone. So, but I've always been like that. I despise adverts.
It's ridiculous. Like, as a kid, I used to love adverts, but obviously as a kid, you're watching shows where the adverts are aimed directly at you and you get to see the latest toys. But as an adult, I don't need to see the latest version of fucking Toilet Duck or whatever it is. Like, it's just not interesting to me. I'll find out about it when I go to the supermarket. That's fine. But yeah, I know what you mean. They are very frustrating.
Or the cinema, which is another complaint. When I asked a few people over the weekend about this, that a good few of them said, why is there has to be 40 minutes of adverts before every film?
Yeah, I've taken to leaving the house. Like, if the film starts at 12 o'clock, I'll leave my home at probably about 12 o'clock, knowing it takes 10 to 15 minutes to get there. And I'll walk in for the last couple of trailers, because they're still going on by the time I get there. That's how ridiculous that has got. But that helps pay for, or subsidise it for the cinemas, so I sort of get why they have to do it. it's the trade-off, isn't it? Because if you get rid of that, you end up having to pay more. We would have to pay more.
Yeah.
So it is the trade-off on it, I think.
It's just so many of them. When there's so many of them, you forget them anyway. Like it used to be, you had 15 minutes of trailers for Kepsi and Poke, one or the other, and some Starburst and some Skittles and stuff. And then you'd have 15 minutes of films, and that was it done. Then film starts, half hour, nice end. But now it's about 25 minutes of product placement adverts. And you think, well, you're just not going to bother, are you? Or you'll do what we did. We just listen to the rest of a podcast.
Yes, that's what I do every time. Headphones on, usually playing a game or something on my phone, so I'm not even watching the screen for the next half an hour. I'm just not interested in what they're trying to sell. But the worst bit of it is always just after the last trailer's played. And you think, okay, it's starting now. And then they put 4 more adverts on for like the Cineworld Unlimited card. And they do that on the night, fucking unlimited nights. And like, every cunt in here has got one of those cards. They have to. Why are you playing it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They really are milking it, I think, when it comes to the advert side of things.
They do listen though, because you know that guy with the most fake, ridiculous Jamaican London accent ever.
Yes.
There were so many complaints about that advert that they took it off now. It's gone.
Really?
Because no one says it's a mad thing still. But no one talks like this. But there was one day when I was in there, it was every 3 minutes. It happened 12 times. That guy was saying the same thing. Because I counted it, because it happened the week before as well. 12 times the same thing after every advert that Pepsi Splash logo came up.
Fucking hell. Try to get suicide, wouldn't it? That fuck me.
I mean, if he actually talks like... Imagine if he comes and talking like Stephen Fry, then that's his actual voice.
Yeah. Atrocious, isn't it? The next thing I've got down that I think changed or helped towards changing the attitude, the pandemic. I think we talk about the impacts of streamers. The pandemic really goes hand in hand with it, because that period of time when the cinemas were forced to close for pretty much over a year in this country, longer in other countries, we had no choice but to turn to streamers, because it was either watching live TV, which was very much neutered because of, the things that were put in place because of the pandemic, or it was reruns of things that you probably either seen or just don't give a shit about seeing. So streaming came on. I mean, we even make a joke every year when we do the half-term review of the Lion King, the Tiger King Award for the show that we all must watch, because that's what it was during the pandemic, wasn't it? That was the thing that brought everyone together. So I think the pandemic really did have a massive impact that we're still feeling now. And I don't think it's that people are scared to go to the cinema, because other things have recovered to the same level. So I don't think it's a case of people being worried about catching the coronavirus. I think it's that attitudes have just changed completely to the cinema, which hasn't really happened in other live outdoor events. I can't think of anything else that hasn't returned to pre-pandemic levels. No.
Well, I mean, as we all know, I didn't care anyway. And I couldn't wait for it to go back. Even when you have to eat, you can only take your mask off if you're eating. I said, well, I'll just eat 1 popcorn per minute then, and do it that way. And no one gave a fuck, did they? No one cared. As soon as anyone got in there, the stupid things were off, and everyone was just back to normal. And we saw it. Was it Maverick? Was the first big one, wasn't it? When everyone was back properly.
I think it was. I know my first film back was A Quiet Place Part 2.
Yeah.
And to be honest, because that was June 22, I think. 22, 21. But I don't think I've ever seen anyone wearing a mask, or, very, very few people wearing a mask back then. And it's never really changed, to be perfectly honest. I think people are just accepted it. It is what it is now. I think that's how the world's been post-pandemic, especially in the cinema at least.
Well, you saw the difference as soon as when you get that summer where the Euros and the madness of what happened at Wembley, that spawned its own Netflix documentary of all things, and that now everyone has just had enough. And it was first game of the season, Leicester away. It was just back to normal. No one cared about anything. Pubs were rammed. It was all back to normal again. And it's been the same ever since. Here, over there, in America, it seems very different. Seems like they were scared for a little bit longer. Some still are, but whatever. But that's why I don't understand, because he did get back, and there were people there, and cinemas were full, like we said, up until last year. And now, what happened? It's like, look, you can understand if people got out of the habit of going, which a lot of people did, and the fact that they dropped the price of that card for us to go back was a nice touch. And I thought that it would have gone up already. I thought it would have crept back up to 20 quid again.
I thought so, yeah. But no, it's held, what is it, 17 we pay, I think, something like that. Like it's a reasonable price, I think, for especially if you go every week and it's the price of less than 2 tickets a month. You can't really complain with that, can you?
And the fact that they didn't market it as pays for itself in 2 visits, that's exactly how it should have always been sold, because normal people are not going to go every week, are they? Or twice a week. So you get the whales like us who do, but the normal people, they'll probably will make a profit on it.
Yeah, most likely. I think one thing that happened during the pandemic, so companies obviously had a lot of films ready to go. They were all scheduled in for the rest of that year, but then there was no way to show a lot of these films. So they either had a choice. They could either wait and see what was going to happen, or they could just pump and dump these movies onto streaming. So even when cinemas had opened back up, because companies had started doing this simultaneous screen and stream releases, I think a lot of people at that point had got used to watching films at home. And because there was no exclusivity, why would you go to the cinema for a lot of them? I mean, I know I did. I went to go and see The Suicide Squad. I wanted to see it on the big screen because it's a director I like with a cast I like. But a lot of people just didn't bother going to see it, and I can pretty much understand why.
You had the thing as well, what happened. Look what blew up in terms of what people spent money on when they had nothing else to do but stay at home on their own, or with a family if they were lucky, or unlucky, depending.
Unlucky, yeah.
Well, imagine Matt on his own with young baby during that period of time. But people spent money on stuff. Like PS5 was sold out for nearly 2 years. Massive tellies that everyone bought. Because why? What else are you going to do? You can't go to the pub. There is no pub. You can't go to the cinema. There is no cinema. There's no live sport. There's fuck all to do. So where's that money going to go? Let's get a bigger telly. And loads of people did. The only thing when I was on the usual walk, listening to the Football Cliches podcast or whatever else was still going at that time.
Yeah.
You used to see them, that the big Curry's vans just going past, just delivering massive things. I thought, well, why not? And I think you go from watching stuff on a 40-inch telly, I suppose, 45, 46-inch telly, to over 65, over 75, depending on the size of your room or whatever. People realise that they could get probably a better quality of experience at home, screen-wise. I've said this before. I know that if you go in screen 1 to 6, 1 to 5, and then 11 to 12, 11 to 14 over that side, that's not even a HD screen sometimes, depending on what they put on there. So if you're getting a better visual experience at home, even if you don't even notice that, you've already bought the equipment to do it, then why wouldn't you just stay at home when you've got so used to doing it anyway?
Yeah, it is. And so many people, they changed the model basically, didn't they? So they were releasing films on stream. I know that they did it with a few of the early Disney ones. Was it Mulan live action and Black Widow? They released them on Disney Plus, but it was Disney Plus Premium, where you paid 20 quid, $20, whatever it was, to buy that film, to watch it. So they were telling people that you can either spend 30 to 50 bucks if you're, a family person, or you can pay $20 just to download a film, or you can pay $10 and watch all of these films for this month. And you might want to stick around next month, which I think, let's be honest, that's their end game, isn't it? They had completely retrained the audience at this point. So once we got out of the pandemic and cinemas had opened back up, nothing had changed. People were still paying their subscription each month to watch a shit ton of films. And there was nothing capturing the audience at that point to drag them back to the cinema. The films in 2021, when we were coming out of the pandemic, nothing really springs to mind as being an outstanding movie at that point. I know we had, as you say, Top Gun Maverick was the big hitter of that period of time. But we had, as I said, we had A Quiet Place, which is quite a niche film that not a lot of people knew about. And it's always been well reviewed, but that doesn't necessarily translate to masses. And then Black Widow, which never really got the numbers in because people weren't interested. It wasn't well reviewed either. And we had a few of those films that were okay, but nothing outstanding, nothing that was must see. And I think that really damaged as well, that they couldn't come back strong.
And there were films that people would have, in the before times, would have watched it out of habit. They would have gone to the cinema to see something that week. But when you find new things to do, I mean, we saw it with PlayStation. And we've seen it now with all the gaming layoffs everywhere, every day. Like, studios being closed down because the morons thought that this was the new normal, and there was a massive growth in gaming. Why? Because people had nothing else to do. They were inside. Yeah. What else are they going to do? So people bought machines, people bought games, companies fell for it, gambled, and now people live without jobs. And that's the downside to that from that point of view. And then you look at it from the other point of view, it's, well, if people got used to playing games rather than going to the cinema every week, maybe they'll only go to the cinema once a week because they've already got this mountain of other stuff to do at home. One of them.
Yeah, I think so. I think ultimately I feel most people will wait to see films on streaming now as well. But I think... So I read this article in preparation for this. People see straight to streaming films as lesser than a film that is seen at the cinema. It's sort of like how we look at Snakes on a Train compared to Snakes on a Plane. Like, if you see a Netflix original, it doesn't have the prestige that a film that went to the cinema went. But the problem is that people are quite happy to wait for those prestigious films that were on the silver screen to come to their small screen. It's something a bit weird. I don't quite understand it, but when I looked at the top streaming films at the moment, it kind of hit home. So Netflix's Godzilla Minus One is the most streamed film on Netflix currently. I completely understand that because that's had a lot of positive word of mouth, and I get it. When you look at Apple TV Plus, Argyle is the biggest streamed film at the moment. You think, well, why? Because Apple TV Plus has got like quite a bit of decent stuff on there, but their most streamed film is one that's been absolutely panned. It's a bit like your question last week, Stu. Why has this found a second life on streaming when it's a bit shit? And I feel like that's become an issue that people are happy to wait because they're only waiting 2-3 months from when the film's at the cinema to when it's on screen. So if it's not one they're going to be rushing to, why not just wait? So these films are just getting this second life, which isn't benefiting anyone but the subscription, the streaming companies. Because actors aren't getting a second payment because they're not selling DVDs. So there's no residuals in those terms for them. There's no money coming from rewatching or anything like that. So I feel like they've retrained their audiences to not give them the money. They've done the complete opposite of what they actually want and need to do.
Yeah, they should have. it was a knee-jerk reaction to do it in the first place. Rather than just say, if you want to watch this film, you're going to have to go outside and not be scared anymore. Again, yeah, I understand. People were scared. It was bad. No one knew all that stuff. But they had no bollocks. They couldn't wait. They couldn't wait it out. And the one that they did do with Maverick was a massive success. Everyone went back to the cinema. They were all full all over the world for months on end watching that film because it's brilliant. But then they went back on it. And once you get out of the habit, you ain't going to get it back again, are you? Especially something like this.
And I don't feel like they've ever taken a stand against it. Like, even now, like, we all this time later, they're still 2-3 months we'll put it on streaming. It happened with Dune 2. It happened with the Batman before. Like, these are films that could quite easily have hit $1 billion. But they lost their nerve. They didn't want to give it another couple of weeks at the cinema. So, like, the Fall Guy, a film that I really had a great time with at the cinema. It was fantastic. Glad I got to see it on the big screen to experience the big dumb explosions and all the fun that came with it. That's available to stream now, and it's still in the cinema at the same time. Why are you doing that? Surely at this point you're just cutting off your nose to spite your face. Why not leave it there for a couple more weeks, see if it just gets that little bit of word of mouth, because it has had a lot of positive feedback. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but realistically, you've lost nothing, because you'll still be releasing it to stream in... They should probably put streaming no sooner than 6 months after it leaving the cinema. Anything before 6 months, I feel like it's a bit pointless. And even at that point, it should only be streaming for a fee, not streaming as part of your Netflix free subscription, or, the subscription with whatever films are included in it. Should be, you have to pay specifically to see this quote-unquote 6-month-old film.
Well, that's how it used to work, wasn't it? It came out, it was on the cinema for, depending on what it was, 2 to 3 months. And then once it had finished there, it was 6 months later, it was on Sky Box Office. Then 3 months after that, it was on Sky Cinema or Sky Movies. Why did they changed that name so many times?
I don't even know it anymore.
No, I think it's just like Sky Cinema now. We're like all in one because they've got glass and everything in it. But that's what it used to be. It used to be 6 months. You can get it on a premium pay-per-view, I suppose you could say, back then.
Yeah.
On Sky Box Office, this is what you're paying for. There you go. 3 months after that, it's on the whole thing. And then 3 months after that, a year later, it's out to buy on DVD or video. That's how it used to work. And it was fine. No one moaned. But because everyone's so impatient now. But you look at the one that did do this. Avatar: The Way of Water. Have you seen where it's on now?
It's like nearly 3 billion. Is it like 2.83 or something? I think I saw it at.
So, with a budget of 350 million that it had, which is insane anyway.
I mean, that's a big budget.
It's now gross worldwide $2.3 billion.
2.3.
Yeah. That's from just the thing. It doesn't count digital yet. That's why.
Okay.
So it will be up to nearly 3. But again, what did they do with that? It was in the cinema. The best way to watch it, not on a phone, in 3D because it was made for it. Everyone went to see, not a problem. Everyone went to see. What did they do? Release it on Blu-ray, 3D Blu-ray, a month after it came on pay-per-view streaming, and look what happens. Perfect. The best way to do it. Everyone wins. If you don't want things, that was the old way, wasn't it? If you don't want things spoilt for you, you go to the cinema and watch it there. If you don't care and you can avoid these things, wait to watch it at home. If you still don't care, watch it when you want to, when you can. Not anymore.
Yeah. Well, this is it. Like, people complain about spoilers, but they make no effort to make sure that they've seen it in reasonable time. Like, if you want if you don't want something spoiling, you obviously care enough that you need to see it immediately. So
Yeah.
if you don't watch it when it's at the cinema, at that point, it's on you if it gets spoiled.
I mean, that's what Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm on day 1, 7 o'clock. And I know it comes out at 10 in the afternoon that day.
Hmm.
But because of change of circumstance, can't do daytime ones anymore other than on a Wednesday. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go dark again for the entire day. I'm not talking to anyone or anything. I'm going to lock myself in the house, go to the cinema on airplane mode for the rest of the day until it comes on, because I know the things are going to be out there, especially for that film. It's going to be ruined to fuck within hours. So, and I'm looking forward. It could be awful. It could be brilliant. Who knows? But I know that if I care about it that much, and because I'm going away 2 days later as well for a week, I ain't going to get a chance. So,
makes sense.
I'm going as early as possible.
I'm surprised you're not going to the midnight showing, to be honest, Stu. I expected that of you.
It wasn't on there when I booked it the first time.
Oh, okay. Right. Fair enough. I mean, I find it incredible that they've got 4 screens doing the midnight showing at Wolverhampton. Are they really going to need 4 screens worth? I'd be surprised. 2, I can understand. Super Screen and Screen 8 is the other big one, isn't it? Or is it Screen 9? Like, I can understand a couple of them, but 4 screens seems a bit excessive.
The Ryan Reynolds effect.
I mean, I'm just looking now, and there's like 10 people in one of the screens. Like, it's just, why are you bothering? Whatever. I'm not paying for it, so I don't give a shit. Strange. One thing that I think has become an issue, and I think this is a problem of streaming, is content over art. Like, it's almost become a running joke of hashtag content, and Disney Plus with the MCU and Star Wars especially have been bastards for this. Like, the amount of stuff that they've pumped out has been a complete waste of time, to be perfectly honest, because the vast majority of it hasn't added anything to the universes that they're trying to promote. And that it is literally just you need to see WandaVision because it's the latest thing in this series, or a lot of the Star Wars stuff, which is, as a fan of Star Wars, everybody wanted more than what we'd got because we've been given a little bit, and now they've given us so much. People are like, yeah, you should have given us less because this is shit. Because they're not giving us a lot of good stuff. And it feels like that's become an issue with a lot of things now, that they're just giving us as much as they possibly can, regardless of the quality of it.
Now, have you watched The Acolyte yet?
Not yet. I've heard it's okay.
Yeah. Well, I'd completely forgot about it.
Yeah, I didn't know it was out until like 10 o'clock yesterday when We Needed Roads tweeted about it. I was like, oh, okay, that's out, is it?
Yeah, that's what I was going to watch today, and then I got distracted again. But yeah, I mean, I still haven't seen Ahsoka because I want to watch all the Clone Wars first, and that's been a long time since I watched that. But that is a now 7-season animated show to catch up, and then you've got Bad Batch as well, and then Ahsoka itself. I know none of this is time contextual, so I can do it at my own pace, but still. That's why I'm interested more in The Acolyte, because it doesn't matter, because it's so far beyond before everything else.
Yeah.
It's a new start, effectively, so it's a big content on art. The best piece of art I've seen all year is that Godzilla -1. And I was going to watch it tomorrow, last Friday when you hear this. I was going to watch it Friday before the Summer Game Fest live stream. But people were starting to talk about it, and I thought, well, okay, fine. I'll watch it then. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. But even that film, with the amount of word of mouth it's had, with how good it is, it still took a while to find on Netflix. It wasn't on the front page.
Not surprising.
None of that type. Well, it was on the front page of my phone because it's all different. it's slightly differently configured on there because of how it goes my list first, and it's all weird.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I had to navigate through to try and find it. And then there's like 4 other like animated Godzilla films, which I had never heard of before. I thought, oh, okay, I'll add these to my list as well. Then I looked at my list, and there's stuff on there from like 7 years ago that I put on there I never watched. So even on my own list.
I've got similar. When you're scrolling through looking for something, like, I've no idea what the fuck this is. And like you say, it's been there since day dot. I'm like, okay, maybe.
It's like you need a whole day to just prune it all.
Yeah.
And then turn Netflix on.
But yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I think Netflix is a right fucker for the whole hashtag content, because so many of their films are just shit, to be perfectly honest. You look at pretty much anything that Snyder's done for them, it's been crap. Red Notice I sort of enjoyed at the time, but it's utterly forgetful fluff. Like, there's nothing. I know I've seen it at least once, possibly twice, and I can't tell you anything that happens in that film. But not a clue what happens.
I keep forgetting its name all the time.
That's not a good sign, is it?
Hey, but I know what the one with The Rock and the one with Ryan Reynolds in, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But
yeah,
how many times in the last year and a half or whatever it's been have we talked about this film? And I mean, that started the revolution that film did. I'm sure of it, because we had that at the Lost City, then we had the Fall Guy. They're all a very similar kind of thing. They're all very retro silly.
But that is nowhere near as good as the others.
No.
Because I think Red Notice. I'm fucking forgetting the name there. Red Notice was just an extended advert for Dwayne's tequila and Ryan's fucking gin. Like, it is dirge. Like, it just feels like it's a 2.5 hour advertisement for Brand Rock, Brand Reynolds. That's all it feels like that movie does. Whereas, like, those two others, there is an art to what they did. It's a silly art, but it's art nonetheless. Like, it's still worthy. Whereas a lot of what Netflix pumps out is just an extended advert for more Netflix, more brand actor. That's very much how it feels like now. And I think to speak to that as well, so there was the film that won the Oscar, the Power of the Dog that won the Oscar, the Benedict Cumberbatch film. Sure, it won the Oscar. Yeah. Oh, so it was the Best Director. Was the Oscar that was won for that one. That's not even available on Netflix anymore. They've taken it off. Like, I mean, they may have put it back on now, but yeah, they took it off. So, like, what the fuck are we doing here if not celebrating the best films? But it's not hashtag content, is it? Benedict Cumberbatch doesn't have a clothing line to shill, so who gives a fuck? It's dreadful.
I mean, a little bit of content. I know you didn't like the Uncharted film that much, but how wrong you were on how popular it was. But again, that was a PlayStation production thing. It was made to sell PlayStations.
That's probably why I disliked it, because it was hashtag content.
Yeah, but it was silly fun, and people loved it, and it's getting a second one, which is probably going to be better.
Interestingly, I've heard nobody mention it other than when they say Tom Holland's a dog shit actor. Like, no one even talks about that film.
No, but they won't, whether, because it was fan service, although they messed everything up. It was Indiana Jones light for people who didn't want to watch a Craigie old man. And it was a massive advert for Sony. So it's a 3-in-1, but people seem to love it because look how many people turned out for that. That one doesn't make any sense.
No. I mean, it's exactly the same film as Five Nights at Freddy's. Like, in terms of what it represents and means, obviously, like, the storyline's very different, but that's exactly what Uncharted was. It was Five Nights at Freddy's. And for someone who doesn't give a shit about either of them, it meant nothing to me. Whereas obviously you care about one of those two franchises and it works for you. And obviously Jafo, being a fan of Freddy's, that worked for him.
Yeah. So, but there's niche out there. But you talk about hashtag content. Have you seen or even heard of a documentary on Disney Plus called Camden?
No.
Exactly. Now look it up. Look at what it is.
Camden, Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Camden is in the place, yeah.
Yeah. And tell me how interesting this sounds.
See, blah, blah, blah. Camden on Disney Plus, see singer Dua Lipa take a look at famous musicians whose lives were shaped by the London Borough. I'd watch that. I mean, I don't really know who Dua Lipa is, but I'd watch that.
That's just the first episode, that is. You've got Suggs in there. You've got Chris Martin in there. You've got people who run the bars in there. You've got Boy George in there. It's a brilliant music documentary, 4-part. No one's spoke about it at all. I just found it when I was pissing about on my Quest. And that was the first one. I watched it. I watched the first episode, the Dua Lipa one. Sounded very different to how I expected it to sound, to be honest. I didn't.
Oh, right, okay.
I didn't know she was from Kosovo either. You know. But I watched it on. When we come to that one, it's a bit watching stuff at home. So it was the first thing I sat there and watched on my Quest in pass-through mode. So I had it as virtual screen. So the screen, to my eyes, the screen looked about 100 inches big. On the wall, fixed on the wall in front of me, 100-inch screen, watching a documentary about Camden on Disney Plus. In reality, I just had some plastic and then some LED lenses strapped to my head. But the immersion of it, with the surround sound, which wasn't bothering anyone else because it's the speakers directed right at my ears, no one else could hear it. I was just sitting there. Yeah, I looked foolish. But the picture quality was outstanding. It's like 4K, and how much is a projector 100-inch projector going to cost you? Thousands. Yeah,
a lot of money, especially in HD. Yeah,
it's 4K as well. It's not HD. It's 4K.
Yeah,
4K image floating in front of you in your room for what, 400-500 quid maybe? What that thing costs. That was just me pissing about, and that's the only reason I found it, because I was logging into everything. Funnily enough, I wanted to watch Godzilla -1 on there, but Netflix wasn't supported. It's got its own app, the Netflix app, where you're in like a virtual man cave. But pass through Netflix through the browser wasn't supported. You can watch iPlayer on there, you can watch ITVX on there, you can watch live TV through that.
Everything else.
So you can have a 100-inch Dion Dublin on your wall if you want.
Bit of Homes Under the Hammer. Who doesn't look?
Exactly. Who wouldn't watch Homes Under the Hammer in VR? But you couldn't have Netflix through the browser until today. So to test it out, I obviously put a bit of Queer Eye on. So, and it's even got this like virtual wraparound thing, so you can be in the middle and they wrap the screen around you, which is completely ridiculous. No one wants that much Jonathan Van Damme. But yeah, it's the options on there as another reason. I mean, that is an incredibly niche product. But again, through that, I found a music documentary that I've heard no one talk about in real life or on Twitter or anywhere. And again, it's hashtag content, but it's good stuff, and it's just buried.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, that obviously that is an exploration of art. Hashtag content, it seems to be something else. It just seems to be the most basic bitch nonsense you've seen. It's the grey man. It's that added.
That was fun, that was.
It wasn't. It was, I mean, that's...
It was terrible, but it was enjoyable terrible.
It was. I love Gosling so much, and that film was almost unwatchable. But that's what it is, and that will get promoted over something like Camden, because Camden's niche, and it feels like art is becoming niche now, which is wrong, because it shouldn't be. That cinema should be about art first and foremost. But I feel like now we're getting so many films that are being marketed as being this hashtag content sludge. Like, that is an issue, I think, with The Fall Guy, is that it was advertised as being the successor to Red Notice. Like, if you saw the trailers, you'd think it was more Red Notice than it was what it actually ended up being. You'd think it was more Red Notice than it is the Lost City. Like, they're marketing it wrong. They're trying to, I think they're putting so much out there to try and appeal to everyone rather than the market who need to see it. Like, that's sort of why musicals are having issues over the past couple of years, because they're not marketing them as musicals.
Yeah.
And I'm not being funny, but if you don't like musicals, don't go and see a fucking musical. It's quite simple. But if you're not being told it's a musical, like the Wicked film that's coming out, now I think most people know it's a musical because it's a very famous musical. But if you watch the trailer, none of them sing in the trailer. You hear their voices singing. You don't see any of them sing.
Oh, no.
But it's one of the most famous musicals of the last 20 years. But that doesn't mean everyone knows it, because not everyone knows about theatre. They don't all tread the boards, do they? So they don't all know.
No. But after Hamilton, though, everyone should know. But again, that worked. Who would ever have thought that'd be a thing, that people would watch a stage show on a streaming service and he'd be that popular?
It is interesting because I know the National Theatre do put on quite a few shows at the cinema. I've never been to see it. I've never even considered it. But after Hamilton came out, I have watched a few, especially during the pandemic again, because they were doing one a week on YouTube. They were putting out a performance. It was all pre-recorded in front of a live audience, over the years. But they started to do it, and like, it does feel like it's taken. I've looked now when they put them on every week at Cineworld, and there's like a good turnout for these things. The only problem I find is they're like 18 quid, even with your unlimited card. The price is a bit extortionate for, you're not seeing a live play, you're seeing a recorded version of a play. So I think they need to tweak their pricing on that personally, but people are turning up, I suppose. Who am I to argue?
I've said that before. When my mother-in-law went to see the Nutcracker every year, but watching it in the cinema rather than watching it in theatre in London, because obviously that includes cost. So if you factor that in, what's 18 quid compared to 200?
Yeah, true. Yeah,
a bit like where your mate William Hanson with the Help I Sexy My Boss live show.
Yeah,
that was really successful. They made so much money from that all over the country. But even at half price, I couldn't justify 9 quid to go and watch that. Even though I love that show and I listen to it every week, both versions, the Tuesday and the Friday one. I think that's just a stepping stone of watching something like that in the cinema. It's like, who are the people who actually watch England matches in the cinema? That seems a bit weird. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I couldn't put up with that, to be perfectly honest. I want silence when I'm in the cinema. You ain't getting that during a football match, are you? Just looking on the Cineworld app at the minute, they're advertising ballets for next year at this point. So you can see the Royal Ballet perform Swan Lake on the 27th of February 2025. 3.5 hours. I mean, that's a good stint. You've got the Nutcrackers on there as well already for 17th of December. So yeah, we've got a few on there.
It just becomes a thing, doesn't it? Nutcracker. You go and watch Nutcracker. You watch Nutcracker at Christmas. You go to the German market. Neither thing's revolutionary, but it becomes a tradition.
I quite like that. That's pretty cool. I'm quite tempted to just go and see one of the National Theatre plays that they put on, just because I kind of want to see how it works in a cinema.
Yeah.
More out of fascination than need. Because I know they did the Jodie Comer one. God, where the one-hander where she played a lawyer. I can't remember what it was called. I wouldn't mind seeing that one. It depends on whether it ever comes back, to be fair.
And you're less likely to have a baby in there as well.
This is true. I think that brings us on nicely to problems within the cinema. So, let's start off with the technical stuff before we get ranty, because it's probably going to happen. The lighting in the cinema really does put me off. Even to this day, I get so touchy. I understand, like, you can't have it pitch black in there because people can't fall over. Why do they need to have lights all around the edges of all of the walkways and everything? Like, it's quite obvious when you're in there, you've got the light from the screen. But that light is often so bright that it impacts the colour of the screen. Little things like that in the cinema that they just don't seem to give a shit about. You could improve, like, the actual experience of being in the cinema by not having these really violently bright lights in there. That bugs me.
I've never noticed this once.
Every time. It's the smaller screens are the worst for it.
The only one in the smaller screens that I've noticed is where the fire exit is. Certain things, if you're watching a dark film in there, like when we went to watch the last Saw film, whatever number that was, last year, a corner quadrant, I suppose you'd say, was illuminated. It was like the opposite of a dead pixel because of the brightness from the walkway, because there's no block, is there, for the little ones?
Yeah.
It just the light leaked straight from outside into there, so it ruined the corner of the screen. And it just takes you out of it. And you think, well, how did you redesign? Yeah, they redesigned this thing. It's worse. That's the only light thing I've noticed.
Yeah.
Lighting strips, I presume, is a health and safety gone mad woke nonsense thing.
Too bright. They could dim. Well, I don't know if they can dim them, but they should be dimmer than they are. So if you sit in one of the small ones, you've got the exit back into the cinema rather than, the actual exit outside. So if you've got the exit back into the cinema foyer, that's lit up in white. So the bottom left hand of the screen will be whiter than normal, and it'll be red on the opposite corner because of the walkway. And it's so distracting. It really fucks me off. Like, you don't need to have these like they even leave like the main house lights on as well, dimmed, but again, you don't really need it. So that's one thing. Like, they just don't make the experience better for me. Another thing that doesn't make the experience better, all the gimmicky nonsense that comes with it. Your 3D, your 4DX, your ScreenX in Cineworld. There's probably other ones out there, but I can only really talk about Cineworld's gimmick. None of those make going to the cinema a better experience. 3D's awful, 4DX is just distracting. And ScreenX, I've spoken before about how one screen impacts the visuals on another screen because it's too bright. The only one that works really, I think, is IMAX. But even then, some of those IMAXs aren't proper IMAXs. They're just retrofitted after it's been filmed to stretch it out. And that's fucking expensive as well if you want to go to an IMAX. That's not great. I don't feel like the gimmicks that they introduce have made it a better experience. That doesn't make me want to go and see a film in that particular, style.
4DX. I've watched a few films in it. Not hit. Bentley Bridge, it doesn't work. It's too small. And it's too quiet. The sound needs to be, the speakers need to be louder than they are to compensate for the wind machines and all that kind of madness. And it never is. So I'm not doing it anymore. I've done two films in there. It's not fit for purpose. The Birmingham one is all right, and the one at Telford's okay. But again, you're only doing that for certain films. You can't go and watch it. Imagine watching Oppenheimer when you've been thrown around all the time. It just ruined the whole thing. When you're watching something stupid, like when I watched It Part 1, that was superb in there because you had the spray from the blood from the sink, like I said before.
Yeah.
And like it bolting you and jerking you and scaring the shit out of you. That was quite enjoyable because it was fun. But you wouldn't do that for, like, I don't know, Amityville Horror. It wouldn't work the same.
No.
So for almost like a theme park ride experience. I get it, but it's got to be spot on. And it's so very niche. But again, it's an option for people, but not for me. Screen X, fucking never in a million years. Just because even the trailers that they're showing, that you can see the bars where because he doesn't meet up, and it's not one. If it was one wraparound screen like that silly eyeball thing in the middle of the desert,
yeah,
the sphere or the Fantasphere,
it sort of is like there's no black bars down the side of each screen. It's just the corner of the wall, basically. So it is one continuous image, but because you've got two cameras crossing each other, like for either side view, so you've got those two and the main one. The light from the side view is so bright that it degrades the image of the main one.
Yeah.
So it ends up being bleeding into it and destroying the image. So what it purports to do doesn't do. It's supposed to show you more, but it actually shows you less. Oftentimes, it's not even showing you more. All it's doing is stretching out the image.
Yeah.
So you're getting like a letterbox view of it because some of the image is going to spill over. So it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's a really poor design.
If it was one continuous LED, then I might give it a chance, just out of curiosity. But again, if that was the case, you'd have films specifically made for it, or not just optimized in a weird way like this. This is the problem with all these things. These films are never meant to be in this format. They're retrofitted for it.
Mm-hmm.
When they are, they're brilliant, but they're retrofitted to fit these gimmicks, and they don't work. I like the IMAX at Telford and Birmingham, to be fair. And 3D doesn't bother me. When I've got 3D at home, I like it sometimes, not all the time. But same thing again. It has to be developed properly. It has to be made for it. And
I haven't seen a good 3D rendering.
But you didn't watch Way of the Water, did you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
And I'll accept that there probably are good ones out there. My issue with 3D is it's not 3D. It's often a 2D image in front of a 2D background. So it looks like Paper Mario.
Yeah, it's like how the 3DS worked.
Yeah. There's no real depth to it. You can tell that the character's in front, but the character is 2D. Like, if they have a big nose, it doesn't stick out. Their face is still flat. So it doesn't work. 3D doesn't work for me.
Well, that's
what I would say. You've said like Avatar is it was designed in 3D. So
yeah,
that probably does work.
And they are 3D computer characters, so it makes perfect sense why it would work.
Yeah. But I mean, that's 1 in a billion. How many films have we had which have been made that way? Well, like the one which was the sequel to Avatar. So yeah.
Well, this is the thing with it, because you look at it and let's talk about my Blu-ray MCU collection over there. Up until Phase 4, they're all, other than the first 3, I think, they're all 3D Blu-rays because they were made that way. Phase 5 is not. They don't even release them anymore. So they don't release 3D Blu-rays of the Marvel films. You can't get them on Disney Plus. So there's no way to watch them. So what's the point? And you can tell now, because they don't even, when it comes to it, there's no such thing as a super screen 3D. It's always 4DX 3D.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. So even I don't bother anymore. So, well, if they can't be asked, then why should we? And they clearly can do it, because that's what Avatar was in.
Yeah. I can't even remember the last... Was it Fast that I saw in 3D? I can't remember if it's Fast 9 might have been, which I didn't need 3D at all. I kind of... Like, to be honest, if it's ever a 3D film, I will avoid it like the plague if I can, because I just don't like it. I think it's a terrible gimmick. The trailers we've spoke about, I think, is shit. One thing that kept popping up that I think they've actually got right, which I mentioned before, I do think the prices are okay at the cinema.
Yeah.
When you compare the prices at the cinema to pretty much any other outdoor activity, I do think it's better value for money. Like if you compare it to football or dining or hobbies or any sort of craft experience that you can do, the average price in the UK is £7.92 for an adult ticket to go to the cinema. Obviously, there's going to be more and there's going to be less. And like, don't get me wrong, this is very much my opinion because it's okay for me. It might not be okay for everyone. £8 can be, the difference between eating and not. So I get that. But for 2 hours of escapism, I think you could spend a lot more doing a lot less.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked about this the other day, when I was talking about Lego. It took me ages to realise actually with Lego, you're almost paying for the time it takes to make the thing in the first place as well as the actual thing itself. So
true, yeah.
I never thought of it that way. I thought, well, why is this stupid little Lego car cost 20 quid or whatever? And that Batmobile cost 45 quid. You think, how long is that going to take to put together? Probably about 3 hours. That's twice as long as a football match. But I just had a look. I did it for a little thing on Twitter the other day. Porsche 911 Lego Speed Champions thing, the same as them Fast and Furious cars, 53 quid. So that would take 2 hours to put together. 53 quid. You look at the NFL in London, which I'm hoping to get tickets for.
Yeah.
And it's, I even have to ask if this was normal because it seems to us outrageous. I mean, you look at the cheapest ticket for the one game in the NFL, 68 quid, up in the gods. So 7 categories, 68, 88, 115, 135, 150, 580, up to category 1. Next to the dugouts, 195 quid for one game, 3 hours.
And that's not including getting there, getting back, eating, everything that comes with it.
So you're talking a 500 quid day out.
Yeah. So like, you're all right. I mean, I'm currently holding the Optimus Prime Lego in my hands. It is 1,508 pieces. I mean, that will take probably a couple of days worth of work to get that all done, doing probably, a couple of 3 hours at a time. And that was, I think it was 80 quid.
That's not bad.
I think, I'll sit there, I'll watch 3 films, I'll stream 3 films and do that. Like, I do think that, that there is value for money out there. And a lot of live activities don't offer that at all, to be perfectly honest. But I do think the cinema is. So for the price of a football ticket at Wolves, for a single football ticket at Wolves, next season, there's rumours of it being 70 odd quid. You could, as a family, go to the cinema and, have an experience that will probably last longer. And if it's Wolves, it would probably be a much more enjoyable experience at the cinema.
Well, it was a Category A game behind the goal. It was 48 quid last season.
Last year, yeah.
So even that's like 4 times worth of going to the cinema to be not pissed off.
Yeah, I it's the only thing I think they've got right, mostly, because there are going to be places that are going to be more and there's going to be places that are less, but mostly around that £8 to £10 mark, I think is okay. If I'm being, tell me if I'm wrong, somebody, but I don't think that's awful. Other people is another issue I have.
Aaron 20 in.
Is it a pandemic thing that we've come out of it and people are just cunts? Like, I don't understand how people don't know how they're supposed to act in a cinema anymore. And the cinema does nothing about it either. Like, they don't have people in there making sure that people aren't on their phones. Like, the amount of times I've had to tell people off for keep getting their phones out is ridiculous. I shouldn't have to do that. It shouldn't be on me. People just sitting there chatting. I shouldn't have to tell you to shut the fuck up. It drives me insane that people just got absolutely no idea on how to act in polite society anymore. I don't know if this is a pandemic thing or not, because when I think about it, Little Women with the baby issue, that was before the pandemic. So maybe people have always been cunts and I just noticing more now. I don't know.
It used to be the hashtag curse of Andy. It only used to happen to you. Exclusively you all the time. But since the nonsense times, it has happened a few times to me. Not with the baby one was outrageous.
Twice. I had it at fucking Mean Girls earlier this year as well.
People taking babies into the cinema. This is, by the way, for people who don't know. Because they can't get a babysitter, so they take their baby to the cinema with them. Yeah, it is. It has to be, because it's almost like they went feral for 18 months to 2 years. They went feral and don't know how to behave anymore, because you see it everywhere. You see it on the bus. You see, you used to get the ute, and we were them as well. You always used to take the piss out of people and whatever. That's fine. But it's like upper level now. It's way out of control, and it is like proper old men moaning about other people kind of stuff. But even as kids, there were never people pissing about in the cinema when the film started.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless you were like on a lucky trail and you were on the back row, but even then you were out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
No one really cared what you were getting up to back there. But you weren't distracting anyone else, so it didn't matter. But when you have got people on their phone, I mean, it's partly their fault as well, because like we said about the trailers thing, if you are going to have so many trailers, people are just not going to sit there and watch trailers.
Mm-hmm.
You either create a Faraday cage of some kind, some locker system, and get people to put them away, or you have someone standing in there with a bat on, and it's the only way they'll learn, because no one cares. And like I said before, when I went to Turtles, and I said to a woman, "Do you mind?" And she sucked her teeth at me.
On a spass in her fucking face. Disgusting.
She wasn't even black, by the way. That's not the sort of thing. She wasn't black. It was like a proper. I mean, if this was the 90s, she would have said "rasclot" at me. It was one of them. It was one of them situations. I thought, I don't even know what's just happened here.
Yeah. So
and she carried on, and it was her kid. It's like tapping her, saying, "Mom, phone." It was her kid shaming her, and it's like, yeah, the kids are all right, but because she'd gone to watch Turtles. I mean, thankfully it hadn't started anyway. But you could just see what was going to happen if not. And fair play, she did. When she was after a little protest, she did put it away. But it was only because her kid kind of shamed her into doing it. It's like, yeah, because she had no because she had no interest in it, and she just took a kid there to watch something that she didn't want to watch. She thought she could just do whatever she wanted. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't. There's rules and regulations about these things, and people don't care. And I think this is probably, because you look at everything else, the price hasn't gone up. Films that have come out are actually really good. People are not scared about germs anymore. What else is there? People have just had enough of other people.
Yeah.
And there's only...
That's a big thing, if I'm honest.
And it's got to the stage now where if there's something I want to watch, that's what we used to do. Well, you still do. Going in the daytime, because if you're going in the daytime, you're not going to be messing about. You go in there to watch a film, and I think because it's like a double-edged sword, I suppose, because it is so accessible, you're not pricing out the riffraff. Because if it did cost 20 quid, it's just a premium experience, and you wouldn't get these people in there. But then you ain't going to sell as many tickets, are you? So it's one of them catch-22. So, but now if I'm going to watch something, past history has said if you go to watch things first weekend, people are not going to mess about because they want to watch it. So Thursday and Friday night is my new time now. That's what I want. If there's anything I want to watch, unless it's a Meerkat Wednesday or whatever, which is the worst time most of the time.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it?
Depending on what it is. Normally for things like what's the last one I went to? I probably Saw again. I went to used it to go and watch Saw. It was all right because people were there to watch that. So they weren't just there for just something to do. But rare, like random films like that, nah. There's Thursday and Friday nights now because that is your premium time. That is when it's coming out. When you got to be some kind of moron to go and mess about at that time. Saturday and Sunday seems like a free for all. I'd never do that.
I've done the odd Sunday daytime, and it's been okay-ish. Not terrible, but not great. But there's absolutely no way I'd be going on a Saturday or a Sunday evening. Fuck that right off. Horrendous.
Not a chance.
But I think the last time I did Meerkat Wednesday was Mean Girls, the musical, earlier this year. And that's probably the worst audience I've had. Because it was dickheads on their phone. It was someone bringing a baby. It was, because it's a 12A, this is a pet peeve of mine, people dragging their kids to see films that are not for kids. But it's a 12A, so if you're 9 years old, you can go. And then they just play in the aisles. Like, don't get me wrong, if I go and see Ghostbusters, if I see Super Mario, if I see the Turtles, I expect kids in there because it's a family film or it's a kids' film. I get it. There's a bit of leeway there. And interestingly, I've always had to tell parents off in those films. Every fucking time I've had to tell them to get off their phone, to shut up or whatever. It's always fucking parents. Parents are the worst thing about the cinema. It's dreadful. They ruin everything. But yeah, I think Mean Girls is the worst one. That was a Meerkat Wednesday because it's 2 for 1, so it's even cheaper than it is. And you're going to get people who don't know what they're doing because they probably don't go to the cinema all that often anymore. Even though it should be a standard to not be a cunt in public.
It should be, but it's not. And this is why you got people waiting for 40 days, which I think was the last one, wasn't it? For the 40-day cut-off period. When, like you said, when you've got tellies that are big enough. In mine's, I think 55 in here and 58 in the other room, as well as a 85-inch projector in a up to 150 virtual. These things don't actually cost that much money if you shop around. If you want to be a connoisseur, they don't cost that much money.
Just weighing the means to get.
Yeah, in the long term. But a 58-inch telly seems quaint these days. But I think it is very much a combination of all of them. But we've how many times we emailed them about it though, or put it on Twitter, and they've responded saying we'll look into it, and nothing ever changes when people play up. Yeah,
it doesn't, does it? Because they don't staff their cinema enough to make sure that they're patrolled well.
Yeah, and if you're working there, you don't want to be doing that. They need security.
They don't get paid enough to fight some fucking chav cunt, do they? Well, you can't blame them either, but it's... People just... Like, we've forgotten what shame is in society, and I don't like it.
Yeah, this is... Jerry Springer's got a lot to answer for.
It really has. It really has. Right, we'll leave that there. Next week, we're going to look at how cinemas can improve things, what they could possibly offer to make it a better experience, and maybe look at how the box office can grow in the future. We're going to do a flashback film to kick the episode off, and it will be what's the name of this film? The final showing, is it, Stu? I've forgotten. Is it the final or the last showing? I keep getting it wrong. It's the last showing, isn't it? Yeah, we'll be watching the last showing, which was filmed in Ellesmere Port, starring Freddy Krueger himself. But yeah, we'll be watching that next week. If you can find it, watch it. It's fun. It's not good, but it's fun. So yeah, it's not easy to find, but if you can find it out there, give it a watch. It's 90 minutes. Like, definitely there's worse things to do with your time. So yeah, give that a go, and we'll have a chat about that one next week. Make sure you subscribe on whatever podcast you listen to us on, and if you've got any questions or thoughts or opinions, cagefightingpod@gmail.com or @cagefightingpod on the socials. Stuart, would you like to say goodbye for this week?
Goodbye, everyone, and put your phones away.
It's goodbye from me, and remember, be excellent to each other.